Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my channel. This is Musaddiq Farooq. I am Assistant Professor of English, Higher Education Department, Government of the Punjab. This is going to be lecture number 5 of our lecture series that has been termed as PPSC FPSC lectureship, and it is meant for the candidates of English. And we are talking about medieval English literature or Middle English literature, and this is the continuation of the previous lecture. As usual, at the outset I have pasted an inspirational tag here. It says the best dreams happen where you are awake. And now you must be wide awake. Why? Because the posts have been advertised yesterday in the newspaper, and thus the advertisement has removed any doubt that there are going to be no posts or there is going to be an unnecessary delay in this matter. If you have come straight to this lecture, I recommend that you watch my introductory lecture at least, if not all the lectures, because that lecture will streamline your preparation and it will tell you which books to follow for the history of English literature, for linguistics, and so on for the genres. As far as this lecture series is concerned, just for the sake of preparation, rather to be more precise, it will polish your preparation. It is not self-sufficient lecture series. I do not claim that any viewer who is listening or watching this lecture will not need to read anything else apart from this listening to these lectures. So please watch my introductory lecture and select any book on history of English literature and linguistics and genres, and then go on reading as much as possible, as I used to say in my previous lectures. And one thing that I do claim, and I assure you, that this lecture series is going to be extremely helpful for everyone who is going to appear in the test for the post of lecturer in English. I have compiled the material for these multiple choice questions from various sources, and those sources are extremely authentic. There is hardly any doubt about them. So I hope you will follow me during this preparation program, and do subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon that is just present beside that subscribe button. So we had discussed 20 questions in our previous lecture, and this lecture is obviously going to start from question number 21. From here on, I also want to make my videos a bit shorter, so I will not give you the time that I used to give in my previous lectures along with the music. Instead of that, I am just going to read the question, and then I will pause at the end of that question. You can pause the video, choose your answer, and then listen to the answer that I am going to tell you about in reply to that question. The question number 1 is question number 21. Which of the following best describes the English translations of French romances? To clarify the question here, I would like to shed some light on what romance is. Romance was a form of literature that was usually in form of verse during medieval literature, but later on it was even written in prose form. And we also discussed in one of the previous lectures that it was an era of French cultural domination. So in the whole continent of Europe, French influence was irresistible. So let's see what we know about the English translations that were the source of which was there in the French language. The first option says they embellished and amplified the original. Embellished means decorated. Amplified means exaggerated. They did away with the original sentiment and psychological analysis of the character to focus only on the story. Verbatim rendering made the translation tedious and insipid. Verbatim means word for word. Rendering means transferring here in this context made the translations tedious. Tedious means too long, and so it was boring and frustrating for the readers. And insipid means tasteless. Now next says lack of appropriate equivalent English vocabulary made the translations more of a jumble. Now you must pause the video here and choose your answer, and then resume the video and listen to the correct option. The correct option here is beta option. All the other options are incorrect, right? If you have chosen alpha or Charlie or delta, you were wrong, and it cost you 0.25 marks. I would also like to clarify something that I have mentioned in my lecture number 1. I told you that there is going to be 2 hours time for your 100 multiple choice questions, but at this time it is going to be 90 minutes, right? 90 minutes and 100 questions. So on the whole you are going to have 54 seconds for every question. Let's move to the next question now. It says, which of the following is wrong about Sir Gawain and the Green Knight? A great Middle English poem. Now to put this question in some context, this Sir Gawain, Arthur and Lancelot, these were very famous characters as far as Arthurian legends are concerned in the Middle English literature. So we are going to tell what is wrong about this poem, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, from the given options. The first option says it was written in the Northwest Midland dialect. Now Anglo-Saxon language or Old English language that moved on after the Norman conquest in 1066 divided into several dialects, and those dialects had different names, of course, and this was some dialects, Northwest Midland dialect. Is it wrong or right? You have to decide. The second option says it was written in the late 14th century. Is it wrong or right? You have to choose the wrong one. The stanzas are of unequal length. It has no rhyming, and it has 25-30 lines. Again, please pause the video, choose your answer, and then listen to the correct answer that will be told by the narrator here. Okay, the correct answer here is delta option, right? It has no rhyming. This is correct option. All the other options are incorrect. If you have chosen alpha or beta or Charlie or eta, all the other options are incorrect. In addition to 3 distinct categories of romance, I have already told you what romance is, and as pointed out by John Bodle, which of the following is the 4th recognizable category? Now, which are the 3 distinct categories? I told you in the previous lecture that those categories are matter of France, matter of Britain, matter of Rome the Great. Now, in addition to that, the 4th one, which has not been mentioned by this person, John Bodle, is matter of Wales, matter of Gales, matter of Celts. Now, Gales and Celts mean almost the same thing. Celts were the people. It refers to the race, and Gales also refers to some people and their language, all their belongings. Matter of England, right? Which is the correct option? The correct option here is matter of England. All the other options, if you have chosen alpha or beta or Charlie, all the other options are incorrect. The next question says, which of the following forms of narrative poetry existed side by side with romance during Middle English literature? The first option is epic, fabulo, Charlie option fabulo. Next option is mysteries and interludes. Right, epic did not originate in the Middle English literature because that language was not as sumptuous and grand as is required for the poetry and works like epic. So epic is not correct option. If you have chosen it, you were wrong. And if you have chosen mysteries, it is not poetry at all. To begin with, it is a form of drama, mystery plays, miracle plays, and then interludes also fall into some kind of dramatic works. So again, this option was not correct. So correct option remains fabulo. Right? What is fabulo? You will come to know in the very next question now. Choose the best description for fabulo. First option says it was a short narrative poem with realistic and humorous elements. It was mainly based on folklores. It mostly drew its material from pure imagination rather than any legends or historical figures, or none of these. Now, if you analyze the first option, it was a short narrative poem with realistic and humorous elements. Now, this option is of course correct option because sorry, I said it's correct option, but then put a cross there. Now it's correct. It was a short narrative poem with realistic and humorous elements. Now, if we analyze a romance, I told you that in romance were the works. Sometimes they were written in prose form, sometimes in verse form. But in medieval literature, most of them were in verse form, and they were mostly removed from reality and discussed some legends and lores. But this work, Fablo, right? Fablo was realistic and humorous elements. It had some realistic and humorous elements. If you chose beta option, of course you were incorrect. It was mainly based on folklores. No, it was not based on folklores. It discussed some real life matters. It mostly drew its material from pure imagination rather than any legends or historical figures. Now, as far as imagination is concerned, no form of literature can be bereft of that element. Imaginative element is present in every form of literature, but here the focus remains on lack of any legends or historical figures, right? Legends or historical figures. Although this option is also correct, but if we compare Charlie option with alpha option, then it seems that alpha option is far better than this Charlie option. So this is even if it is good, but it is not better than alpha. So again, it will be not correct, and none of these are four. So it is not correct. Fablo can be found in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, whose story falls under this short narrative form. Now there are many characters. There are 29 characters in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and their introduction is given in prologue. The plan of that work was that every character has to tell 4 stories, right? Every character was supposed to tell 4 stories, 2 on the way to the Canterbury and 2 on the way back. So one of those tales was Fablo. Now, which of that was Fablo? First of all, Knight's Tale, the Tale of Wife of Bath, Parson's Tale, or Merchant's Tale. The correct option here is the Merchant's Tale. All the other options, if you have chosen Knight's Tale, the Tale of Wife of Bath, or Parson's Tale, you were not correct. The next question says Fable. Another popular medieval literary form can be best described as what? A short moralizing story with animals as characters, a narrative in verse meant to be sung, a long heroic narrative in verse, a story in which events are mere symbols. Now the first option is of course correct option. The second option refers to lyric songs, and if it is in the form of story, it was a ballad. A long heroic narrative in verse is epic, and story in which events are mere symbolic, it is usually allegory. The next question is the sources of medieval fables lay in which language? You have to choose the language from which they drew their material. So it is first option is Indian and Greek sources. Latin sources, then Indian and Greek sources, then French sources, and Old Germanic. The correct option is Indian and Greek sources, right? One of the best sources was Aesop's Fables, and it is famous all over the world even today. And Latin sources, French sources, Old Germanic sources, all the options are incorrect. The next question is how many books of medieval English fables survive to this day? So the question is not about fables individually, rather collections of fables. How many collections are extant, which are still surviving and which can still be found at different places in museums or in libraries or etc. Now, if you have chosen only one, you were incorrect. 23 incorrect. 10 incorrect. None of these is correct, because no book of fables is surviving today. There are quite a few fables here and there, which can be found on the margins or on the blank pages of some manuscripts, but there is hardly any complete collections of fables. Which of the following tales can be categorized as fable? The correct option is nuns, priests, tales. Right? All the other options again are incorrect. Question number 31 says, running along with the fables was also another minor literary form that described animals and at the end had some moral significance. What was the term for such literature? Was it allegory? I've told you that allegory is some symbolic work in which events and characters usually stand for something else. Not correct here. Mock epic, again not correct. Lyric, not correct. Bestiary, yes, this is correct option. And what is the difference between bestiary and fable? The difference was that fable was usually a short story, a very short story in fact, and it did not have any commentary either from the narrator or from the writer himself or herself. But as far as bestiary was concerned, it is derived from beast, right? Beast means drinda in Urdu, right? Any wild animal, fierce animal. And bestiary usually consisted of two parts. First part usually had some description about that animal, or if there was more than one animal, description about those animals, and at the end there was some moral significance or some sort of thing. So it was a bit different from fable. Now next question is, from which of the following pathways did bestiary reach medieval English literature? The first option says from Egypt and then through Greek and Latin. B option says from Norman French, from Anglo-French, from Arabic, and none of these. The correct option is alpha. All the other options are incorrect, right? One of the following was a song based on lyrical poetry. It was sung by a leader along with a chain of singers. You have to tell which of them was this kind of song which was sung by a group of people. One of them was leader and the others were followers. Now as far as the first option is concerned, it says refrain. It is incorrect because refrain is usually a line that is repeated in a song or a poem. The second option is iambic. Now iambic is actually a meter. It has nothing to do with that song. This meter has one unstressed and followed by one stressed syllable, and there are various variations of this meter: iambic monometer, dimeter. Iambic pentameter is the commonest of them all. Again, here it has nothing to do with our question. Carol was actually the correct answer. Sonority is a group of women, and this group is usually formed for some specific purpose. So again, it has nothing to do with our question. The next question is, lyrical poetry evolved from seasonal celebrations and communal work songs, commonly dubbed as means referred to as, called as. Now you have to tell what was the common term for this communal work songs and celebration songs: folk songs, strophe, antistrophe, or legends. The correct option is alpha option. All the other options are incorrect. Strophe and antistrophe was used in the Greek tragedy. You must have read it if you have read Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. When the people in chorus used to move from right to left, they used to sing a strophe, right? And when they used to move from left to right, they used to sing antistrophe. And antistrophe usually used to be the same as strophe, but in the reverse order. Chaucer's prologue to the Canterbury Tales opens with a convention that was extremely popular in medieval English lyrical poetry. Now, what was that convention or tradition, right? What is convention? Tradition. Was that tradition the welcoming of spring, lamenting bleak and desolate winter, mentioning the plans of travelers, idealization of a character as knight in a Chaucer's case? Now, in order to answer this question correctly, you have to bring the opening of that poem into your mind, and if you do that, you will come to know that the first option, alpha, is correct option, right? You can consult the original text and you will come to know that it starts with this line like, when in April the sweet showers fall. So April was spring season. All the other options are of course incorrect, and there is hardly anything to be discussed here. The next question says, which manuscript which is in the British Museum contains the best medieval English lyrics? It dates from the first quarter of the 14th century. Now you have to tell what is the name or the title of that manuscript. If you chose La Nina or El Nino or Belial, you were incorrect. The correct option was Harlane, 2253. Now, La Nina and El Nino were actually to confuse you people. La Nina is a current of cold wind, and El Nino is a current of warm and hot winds that blow and bring some tropical storms and hurricanes along with it. Belial, although it is also a name of some script, but it has nothing to do with collection of lyrics. The next question says, macaronic poems were the lyrics that had religious themes in them. Why were they called macaronic and not just lyrics? First option says because they were written in the shape of macaroni. It is a humorous option, but cannot be correct because macaronis themselves do not have any definite shape. The next option says because they used English and Latin together. This was of course correct option. The next option says because they contained acronyms as forms of riddles. No and no again. Now the next question is, shows which dash shows individual religious emotions, whereas dash depicts communal sentiments. You have to bring out the difference. This is the difference that has been brought out before you, and you have to tell this is the difference between which two types of poems. The former is also more sophisticated. The former that will be put here. Now, can we say religious lyric shows individual religious emotions and hymn depicts communal sentiments? It can be so, and it is so, of course. So it is the correct option. All the other options are incorrect. Okay. Last two questions of this lecture. Question number 39 is, allegorical mode of writing in medieval poetry had its most prominent origins in fables and fabulo, bestiary, interpretation of scriptures, and unknown origin. The correct option is interpretation of scriptures, because in that interpretation they used to take it as personifications and symbols of different things. If you are quite aware of religious interpretations, you know that such interpretations create strife in society, and along with all the mess that is possible by human beings. I do not mean that that strife and that mess is created by the scriptures themselves. Rather, it is created by interpretation, faulty interpretations by human beings. Last question of this lecture is, which of the following forms of literature is the latest? Narrative romance, allegorical romance, of course. Narrative romance, lyric and bestiary, of course, they are not correct option. So viewers, this was today's lecture. If you have liked it, please like it, put a thumbs up, and also do comment in the comment section. Till the next lecture, goodbye, take care.